Hi everyone, my name is Lily.
And I'm Caitlin.
And today we'll be talking about building vocabulary in school-age students. We hope that this is an informative topic and something that you can use in your classrooms. So we'll start by giving an overview of vocabulary and what it is. Then we'll talk about why it's important, especially for school-age students. We'll also discuss how vocabulary impacts academic, behavioural and social factors. We'll explain the different types of vocabulary, which are most helpful for children to learn at school. And lastly, we'll give some ideas about how to teach vocabulary in the classroom and provide some resources that you could use to build vocabulary.
So firstly, we'll give an overview of vocabulary. Vocabulary is the foundation of language. It can be split into expressive and receptive vocabulary. Expressive vocabulary are words that are used in speaking or writing. Receptive vocabulary are the words that are understood through listening or reading. Students require expressive and receptive vocabulary for speaking, understanding, reading, and writing. Vocabulary is made up of groups of words, which include nouns, verbs, adjectives, conjunctions, and more. And there are a few examples of each on the screen. Understanding the meaning of a range of these words has a lot of benefits for school-age students.
So why is vocabulary important? Vocabulary is important for oral language, which includes speaking and listening. So expressive vocabulary is important for students to know a wide range of words to express their thoughts, feelings, and ideas. Having a limited expressive vocabulary may not allow students to precisely express themselves in an accurate way across different situations. For example, if a student is trying to tell you that they were embarrassed by something that happened in the playground, but they don't understand the meaning of the word embarrassed, they might use a different word such as angry or scared, which doesn't accurately reflect how they felt. Now, this changes the meaning of their message, and this can lead to misunderstandings. Receptive vocabulary is also important for understanding what other people say. If a student has a limited receptive vocabulary, they can have difficulties understanding what their parents, friends, and teachers might say. For example, if a teacher says, "Put your homework in your bag," the student may not understand the meaning of location words such as in. They may instead place their homework next to or on top of their bag. So we can see that a limited receptive vocabulary can affect a student's ability to follow instructions and participate in the classroom. So expressive and receptive oral vocabulary also forms the basis of writing and reading. Evidence shows that children who have stronger oral vocabulary perform better in writing and reading throughout the school years. Vocabulary improves a student's writing as it allows them to be more detailed and descriptive in written expression. Also, when a student understands a broad range of words, they are able to understand what they are reading and answer questions accurately.
So what are the impacts of vocabulary? There is strong evidence showing that vocabulary impacts a student's academic success, social participation, and behaviour. So first, let's talk about how vocabulary positively impacts academic success. Vocabulary is essential for the classroom. It is used in nearly every classroom activity. Students need a wide oral vocabulary to tell stories, participate in classroom discussions, answer questions, and follow instructions. So students who have strong vocabularies will perform better in these tasks and academia overall. Also, it's known that in the school years, learning is delivered through reading and writing. And there's also a strong link between vocabulary and reading and writing, as described earlier. Therefore, students who have strong vocabularies will be more proficient readers and writers. This will enable them to access the curriculum and show their academic knowledge. On the other hand, vocabulary can also negatively impact academic success. A limited vocabulary can act as a barrier to learning and accessing the curriculum. For example, the curriculum may require a student to learn about the water cycle by reading an article. But a student may not comprehend the article because of their limited vocabulary, meaning that they won't understand the concept of the water cycle. Although it may not seem obvious that vocabulary is the problem, underlying vocabulary difficulties may impact academic success in a range of subjects. Likewise, students with vocabulary difficulties may find it difficult to perform oral tasks, like telling stories and talking in front of the class, which may impact their academia as well. For this reason, students with vocabulary difficulties often perform more poorly in academia. We'll now talk about how vocabulary impacts social participation. So firstly, the positive impacts. Vocabulary plays a significant role in socializing and interacting with other people. Students with robust vocabularies are able to talk with a range of people, like their friends, teachers, and parents. They can communicate their ideas and understand the messages of others. Vocabulary also allows students to express their emotions and understand how their peers are feeling, because they know emotive vocabulary. This can provide them with the emotional intelligence to form deep social bonds. Therefore, vocabulary can positively impact social participation. Conversely, vocabulary can also negatively impact a student's social participation. If a student has a restricted vocabulary, they may struggle to socialize with their friends in the playground. They may not understand what their friend is saying to them because of their limited receptive vocabulary. The student may also struggle to share information and contribute to conversations because they have a limited expressive vocabulary. Also, vocabulary difficulties can affect a student's ability to express their emotions and understand how their peers are feeling, simply because they may not understand the meaning of more complex emotive vocabulary, such as the word ashamed. This can impact the student's ability to make close friendships and form bonds at school. And this can have negative consequences because of the importance of social connection for a student's overall well-being. Moving on to the way vocabulary can impact behaviour. Firstly, the positive impacts on behaviour. A strong vocabulary can enable students to understand the teacher's instructions and complete the tasks required of them. They will likely feel engaged and motivated to participate in the classroom, and this will help boost their self-esteem and confidence. On the other hand, vocabulary can also negatively impact behaviour. For example, if you give an instruction, such as put your bag on and stand in a straight line, the student may not understand or follow it because of their receptive vocabulary difficulties. This may be perceived as bad behaviour rather than an underlying vocabulary difficulty. The student may also feel frustrated because they don't understand the instruction, especially if there are negative consequences for not following it correctly. This could lead to even more behavioural difficulties, such as emotional outbursts. Once again, the underlying issue of vocabulary difficulties can lead to behavioural problems in the classroom.
So how do we decide which vocabulary to teach? Vocabulary can be categorized into 3 tiers of words. Tier 1 vocabulary are general, concrete words that are used in everyday speech, such as table, happy, or baby. Children are naturally exposed to these words and hear them throughout daily conversations, so they usually learn them without needing extra support. Tier 2 words are more academic and abstract words that are often found in texts. Some examples include analyze, restrict, and foundation. These words are rarely used in everyday conversation, and so children are less likely to be naturally exposed to them. Students will therefore benefit from specific teaching of the meaning of these words. Learning these words are important for students to succeed in academics throughout the school years. Research shows that Tier 2 words are the best words for you to explicitly teach. Tier 3 words are words that are used in specific subject areas. They are technical vocabulary. For example, a Year 1 science class may use words that are not yet part of a student's vocabulary, such as habitat, prey, or offspring. This type of vocabulary is necessary for students to understand information in specific subjects, and they should be explicitly taught in that subject. So in summary, students benefit from explicit teaching of Tier 2 words. In fact, there is a strong body of research to suggest that explicitly teaching Tier 2 vocabulary greatly benefits a student's oral vocabulary, reading comprehension, and writing. There are different word lists of Tier 2 vocabulary for each grade, and we will provide this as a resource at the end of the presentation.
So how should vocabulary be taught? It's been found that robust vocabulary instruction, or RVI, is a very effective method of teaching vocabulary. RVI involves explicitly teaching the meaning of vocabulary words and using interactive methods to get students thinking and engaging with the words. It aims to help children have a deep and robust understanding of the meaning of words, rather than just rote learning word definitions. The components of RVI are: first, introduce the word and give a very simple definition of the word that the students can easily understand. Then, get the student to repeat the word. This makes sure that the students have a phonological representation of the word in their minds, so they know the sounds that make up the words. Next, give a synonym, so a word that has the same meaning, and an antonym, so a word that has the opposite meaning. And also use the word in a sentence. After that, give examples of when the word would be used and encourage the student to come up with an example that relates to their own personal life. Then encourage the student to engage with the word in a range of activities to reinforce its meaning. Make sure the student is exposed to the word in a range of contexts, including speaking, listening, reading, and writing. This can be done by using a word map for each word, which we'll provide as a resource at the end of the presentation. So let's do an example of how RVI could be used to teach the Tier 2 word recall. Firstly, give a very simple definition. So for recall, this could be to remember. Secondly, get the student to repeat the word, perhaps 3 times. This could be done in a fun way. For example, the student could whisper the word, then say the word in a normal volume, and then shout the word. Then for a synonym and an antonym, a synonym could be remember, and an antonym could be forget. Next, for using it in a sentence, the sentence for recall could be, I can't recall what your dog's name is. Then, for examples of situations when the word could be used, you could think with the students about what you might need to recall for school tomorrow, like bringing lunch or homework. Or you could think about what are some things that are very important to recall, like family members' birthdays. Lastly, you can do a range of activities about the word. So you could think of some things that help us recall information and draw pictures of those things, like phones, calendars, and reminders.
So what are the different ways to teach vocabulary in the classroom? Research shows that teaching 3 to 5 words a week is appropriate for primary school age students. However, this can be increased to 2 to 3 words per day based upon time and what else is going on in the classroom that week. For kindergarten students, it is recommended that children learn words from shared book reading. This will allow them to directly relate the word to the context of the book. So an example of how you could do this could be, if you read a book each week to the class, you could identify the Tier 2 words in the chapter and teach them before you read the book. This will help the students learn the words as the book is read. Also, activities can be conducted throughout the week using these Tier 2 words. For school years above kindergarten, words can come from books or they can be chosen from a word list. You could teach words each week that are based around different themes like technology, Halloween, the environment, and even school. You could also invite parents to practice the week's vocabulary words with their children at home. So it is recommended that students have multiple encounters with these words in different activities throughout the week. For example, you could allocate 15 minutes to vocabulary instruction each day and use components of RVI in these activities. An example of how vocabulary can be taught throughout the week is, on Monday, you could introduce 3 to 5 words and explain these words using simple definitions. And then the students can repeat these words using maybe a whispered voice, a normal voice, and then a really loud voice. On Tuesday, you could introduce a whole class activity where you consolidate these words and definitions. And you can come up with a synonym and antonym to enhance the understanding of these words as well. Students can also keep a diary to write these words down so that they can look back on it and use it for the future. On Wednesday, you can set up stations around the classroom where there are different activities for each station. And at each station, the students can come up with a sentence that uses the words. On Thursday, you can think of activities for students to engage with the words. So students can write maybe a short story using all of the words. And on Friday, you can do a fun activity with the words. So you can maybe play a game where the class stands up and you can give a definition of the word, and students have to evaluate if the definition is true or false. So if the definition is true, students place their hands on their head, and maybe if the definition is false, students place their hands on their tail. So there are more examples of activities you could use at the end of the presentation, which we will provide. A word wall could also be created to keep track of all the words that have been covered throughout the term. It is also helpful to revise the words taught in previous weeks. This could be done by having an activity that focuses on words taught throughout the term.
So we've also just come up with some resources to help with teaching vocabulary. So firstly, we've included a word map. This could be used to introduce each word and keep a record of its features. You could keep all of these in a vocabulary folder or book. So as you can see, this word map includes space to write the word and its simple definition. Students can also write a synonym, so a word with the same meaning, and an antonym, so a word that has the opposite meaning. And there's also space to write a sentence that uses the word. You can also write an example of how the word relates personally to the student as well. So the idea is that each of the RVI elements are included on the word map. And you could easily adapt or change this word map to suit your class or make your own. But we thought it was a useful way to keep track of the words so that the students can look back and remember them in future. The second resource we thought would be helpful are a few more activity ideas of how you can get students engaging with vocabulary in the classroom. So I'll just briefly go over each activity. So draw a picture. So students could draw a picture relating to the word. Do a word search, where students search for the words in a finder word and they cross off its definition when they find it. Charades, where students act out the word and other students can guess it. Similarly, Pictionary, where students draw the word and other students guess it. Treasure hunt, where students search for the definition of the word hidden around the classroom, and then they come back and match it with the corresponding word. You could do a matching worksheet where students draw a line connecting the word with its meaning. This could also be done using pictures, where a student connects the correct picture with its meaning. You could use closed passages, where students fill in the sentences with the correct word so that it makes sense. You could play silent ball, where students say a word and its definition each time they get the ball. Or another way you could play is that you throw around the ball, and each time a student gets the ball, they say the vocabulary word in a sentence. Another activity is storytelling, where students come up with a story using the word. And the final activity there is show and tell, where students use the word in their show and tell presentation. So those are a few more activity ideas, but I'm sure that you could come up with some others yourself as well. Another resource we've provided is lists of Tier 2 words per grade, because some words are obviously more complex than others. So we've got lists of Tier 2 words here per grade. So firstly, this is kindergarten and Year 1. And this is grade 2. And there's just a list for each grade going up to grade 12. So you could easily have this list really accessible and then just pick a few words off this list each week that you're going to focus on.
So thank you for listening to us, and we hope you've enjoyed our presentation. If you have any questions about anything in the presentation, feel free to email Julia, our supervisor, and we've just added her email at the end of the presentation here. Thanks again and have a great day.
Thank you.